Good evening. Welcome to another off-the-cuff chat with me, FPL Mez. So my name is Mira, and if you haven't tuned in previously, these are my off-the-cuff, very, very off-the-cuff conversations with yourself. So the Twitter community or X community, and also the YouTube community as well. So I've been doing these now exactly a month. So I can't believe a month has passed, and this will be, I guess, episode, if we look at it as episodes, is going to be episode 6 or 7. I'm not sure. I think because I've not really been doing it every week consistently, so I've been sort of spacing, no pun intended, I've been spacing these out a little bit between sort of once a week, but it's been pretty much every 4 or 5 days or something like that, whenever there's something to have a good chat about as well. And I have to be honest, I've been very much enjoying myself as well doing these. It's really nice to get engagement from the Twitter community or the X community. I'm just going to call it Twitter. It's too hard. It's been really nice to get that sort of engagement. And if you haven't tuned in previously, what I tend to do is try and sort of just record the session itself. So it's going to be recorded on Spaces anyway, but I also record the session so that it can be popped up on my YouTube channel. So if you haven't actually gone to my YouTube channel, please click on my profile. I'll post a link there later as well. Hey Tien. I'll be posting up the video on my YouTube channel as well, so that you can catch up on the visual side of things as well. So because I do capture the video, it's great to see your reactions as well. So if you can react occasionally, that would be wonderful. Your reactions will actually come through if you go back and have a look at the YouTube video as well. So yeah, feel free to react. So that's a little bit of context. So like I said, it's been about a month now and I've been thoroughly enjoying it. Thank you for joining me, week after week. For those of you that have been, it's been a lot of fun just kind of chatting about all the things, occasionally ranting, hardly ever prepared as well. I don't think I often know exactly what I'm going to be talking about during the session as well. Typically, I give myself a little bit of structure with, in terms of trying to have a conversation about my previous game week or planning for the upcoming game week or doing lots of planning or just lots of sort of random thoughts that will, occasionally pop up into the mind. So look, I've been really enjoying sort of, sharing these with you as well. Again, these are very much one-sided. Occasionally I do sort of bring on guests to have a quick chat as well. And I'm hoping that next week's one, I'll be able to, grab someone as well to have a conversation with. So fairly one-sided and hopefully not too long like the previous ones have been as well. I think in the past I've had sort of conversations that have gone on for like 45 minutes to an hour when I had a guest on as well. But hopefully today's one will be fairly sort of, shorter and straightforward as well. So look, that's a little bit of context there. I'd love for you to, hang around if you can and react as much as you can as well. That would be wonderful. But look, I'm just going to give you a little bit of context to my game week, and I will sort of, pop that on the screen as well. So if you are watching this sort of afterwards, then yeah, you can kind of catch it over there. So I actually had a pretty good game week. So I actually finished on 92 points, which was a huge amount of points than what I actually expected. And I'll sort of go through my team in a moment and sort of give you a bit of context to that as well. So, in terms of like what I expected from the team, I've had really terrible game weeks up till now in the sense where I've tried to sort of, hold my shit together as much as possible with the planning side of things and decision-making side of things. And, It's been pretty tough. So I actually started around that kind of just within the 1 million mark in my first game week, and then I've just had consecutive red arrows. So it's been really frustrating, like especially when you're making good decisions and you're trying to kind of consume as much sort of, I guess, the things that you have access to. So whether that be sort of data, pre-season, previous season, stats as well, and just context of how well that team is doing as a whole. So not looking at sort of players in an isolated way, but just looking at the team as a whole. And so it's really, really disappointing when you sort of go week after week and not really, see the results that you would expect to see based on some of that good decision making. And so, yeah, look, it's been pretty disheartening over the past couple of game weeks up till now. But I've tried my best to be consistent as possible as well during that time. And, it doesn't matter how tough it is, but it is important to be, as consistent as possible when it comes to how you're making your decisions based on the planning that you're doing and the fixtures that you have and, all of these things. But look, even the best of us, doesn't matter how experienced you are as an FPL manager. And in my case, I'm only in my third season. So no matter how experienced you are as an FPL manager, it's so easy to knee-jerk, especially because you want to get that instant gratification. And that's probably the hardest thing to kind of, wrap your head around and really convince yourself that, you don't want to react instantly. So, I'll give you an example of that. So in my, I think it was like first game week, second game week, I still had Salah in my team, and it's crazy, isn't it? Because now we all want Salah back in our team, or in my case. But a lot of FPL managers are thinking back about bringing Salah into their team now and wildcarding really early. I don't think there's any sort of particular time, where you should be wildcarding or shouldn't be wildcarding or anything like that. It's whatever's best for you and your team. However, in my case, I had to make a conscious decision about spreading the funds, and that's the decision I wanted to make. So although I drafted Salah into my team and played him for at least the first 2 game weeks, and he did get returns in those as well, I just found that not having particular players in my team, so I think it was like not having Matoma in my team and not having Mbumo at the time, and some of these players were returning consistently as well and actually getting bigger holds than what Salah was returning. So from that point of view, I wouldn't say that I knee-jerked, but I made a conscious decision to sort of drop Salah from my team and transfer in a couple of other players that were, I guess, being a little bit defensive. And I think when you're playing like quite sort of early on in your FPL sort of career as well, it's really difficult to sort of work out what is the right thing to do in that kind of scenario. Even though I had a really good season last season, I ended the season in around like 2,500, which was a really good season for me, and I started off really well as well. But this season, I had to kind of relearn some of those things, and this has actually been a massive learning curve, especially from how to continuously make these decisions in a way where you're not knee jerking, you're not sort of, you're keeping a check on your mental health at the same time as well, and making sure that you're being as consistent as possible, and just try not to knee jerk as well. And so the fear of missing out and knee-jerk sort of reaction is really, really strong when you're not doing so well. And so you start sort of questioning your own kind of your gut, you start questioning your decision-making process, you start questioning everything that you thought you knew about playing well, right? Especially because you're not getting the returns or the outcome that you really hoped to get. And so, you go so far, and in my case, I got to end of game week 5 and planning for game week 6, and I'm pretty sure so I spent a fair bit of time in my last video and last sort of spaces where I talked about what team members, I've got right now, and and who I'm thinking about sort of transferring out, bringing in, that kind of thing. And I think at the time I was very adamant that, I'm probably going to be losing one, if not both, my Chelsea players. I had Chilwell and Jackson in my team, and bloody hell, they've been a pain in the ass to have and own as well. And so, I was being as patient as possible. And this is what I mean with your gut is telling you, your instincts based on how you've been playing previous seasons is telling you that you should be patient and that you should trust yourself. And so, I'm a firm believer of all these things. And so, I was trying my best to follow the same patterns that, the type of advice that I would be giving to other people as well, just to kind of trust yourself. But like I say, when things are not going to plan, you start questioning your gut decisions. You start questioning your decision-making process. You start questioning the content that you might be consuming, the people that you're sort of talking to. You start questioning everything around you, especially when you go back game weeks of not sort of getting the returns that you hoped that you would get. And so, I think like last week I had pretty much sort of made a decision to definitely sort of, I had 2 free transfers, definitely transfer out, 2 players, bring, two new players in. And the predicament I guess I had was that I wasn't able to bring in, and obviously last week's hype was Alvarez. And that was insane as well. Oh my God, like he had how many, I think it was like 1.3 mil or 1.4 mil transfers in. That's insanely high. I think like we've had quite a few transfers in each week, for 1 or 2 players. And there's like so many memes out there as well with, what's going to happen next. And it feels like, we already kind of vaguely have an idea of what the potential, the next bandwagon might be, with a double game week coming. But look, I really wanted Alvarez as well because I've seen him, consistently sort of provide those returns as well. And, I was previously a little bit skeptical about sort of jumping on bandwagons like that. And, last season I was in a really good place where I managed to catch some of those big hauls much earlier on as well. And so when you've had that feeling and that you can, sort of go back there, you try and sort of experiment. And so in my case, I was experimenting a lot more, which is a good thing and a bad thing. And, the reason why I say it's a good thing and a bad thing, I mean, it's good to experiment because you learn things very quickly and, you can then sort of, it's like having hypotheses and you test them and you sort of go, yeah, okay, that's validated my initial assumption. And this is now something that I can move forward with, or it's actually invalidated. And so you're sort of like, okay, well, back to square one, I'm going to try something, different. But that's also kind of the opposite of what you should be doing when you're playing FPL as well. So I guess from that point of view, something to learn. I think it comes down to risk appetite as well. And so, look, I took out like players like Salah, brought in, more defensive sort of players, especially to sort of, because of my EO, or the players that I brought in their EO more than anything, and to make sure that I was not getting, smashed every game week. But last game week, I pretty much headed down the pathway of making, I guess, like banking in a whole series of transfers in different sort of pathways. And this was like my extreme sort of, my way of panicking, I guess, like, as you sort of get to know me as well, the way I panic is usually I've got to overplan. I've got to plan everything out. I've got to work out, every sort of transfer I'm going to make and how much wriggle room I've got between, sort of the budget I've got and, how much money I've got in the bank, all of that kind of thing. And so in my video last week, I pretty much, went through 2 drafts where I had the option to take out Walker from my team and bring in Alvarez. And so, I'd be pretty much ripping up the team a little bit to sort of, bring in Alvarez because, again, bandwagon, FOMO, all of that sort of, especially when things are not going right, those emotions are even heightened. And so, yeah, it's really tough when that happens. I can see like someone's requesting to. So Tien, I'm really sorry. I haven't actually got sort of audio plugged in for a 2-way conversation. So we're going to have to try and do this in a planned way. Sorry about that. maybe you can message me, and I can sort of grab whatever sort of message you're trying to send, and I'll read it out as well. So yeah, I guess like because of that, I decided that I'm going to sort of look for information in other places, and so this is where I sort of turn to the algorithm and the different sort of algorithms we've got available to us, and it's really frustrating from that point of view because obviously algorithms are going to give you information. So this is all based on data that it has, and it provides you with more data. And based on that data, you're making decisions, right? And it doesn't factor in, things like eye tests and stuff like that as well, not as much anyway. Okay. So Tien pressed request by mistake. I thought you were going to have some really wise words, some profound words to say there. But feel free to chuck that in as well if you have any wise words, because you are a constant source of good, like lots of good advice. So look, from that point of view, I turned to the algorithm. I won't sort of name which ones or anything like that, but I took a look at a few that were available and tried to sort of work out what it was telling me. And like if you wanted to sort of have a look at that video, please go to my YouTube channel. You can check that out. I actually went through like right up to game week 12 or something like that, different pathways of having Alvarez in the team, and the other draft actually had Edouard in the team. And so, and again, this was based on I'm not going to be able to bring in the key transfer of that game week, which is going to be probably Alvarez for a lot of people. But I can only bring in one other sort of forward, and because I wanted to get rid of Jackson. So it was almost like I'd made a decision. I didn't want to hold Jackson any longer. And so based on the algorithm, Eduardo was coming up, really word. Tien just said no wise words. Sorry. All good. So Eduardo was coming up quite high for the fixture that Palace had as well, which is against Fulham. And so, look, I wasn't sort of entirely convinced about that, but based on, sort of making a decision, I'll go Eduardo, and Eduardo being a really cheap player. He was only like 5.5 when I was, thinking about bringing him in. I also decided if I was going to get rid of Chilwell, actually it was between Chilwell and Gabriel. I've still got Gabriel in the team, which is a total fuck my life moment because I think he's just dropped in price again, and I've held on to him like way too long. But you know what? It's like sunk cost fallacy, where it's done, but he's also returning as well. So it's kind of, well, okay, you're not a problem for me right now, so you can stay. But with Chilwell, he got benched in the last game week and the game week before that as well, of course. So, I think from that point of view, you start to sort of go, okay, well, I need to just chuck these guys out from my team. So if I got rid of Jackson and got rid of Chilwell, all of a sudden I've got all this funds available. And so then you're like, oh my God, why have I got so much money sitting in the bank when I can actually put that towards bringing in another player? And so instead of doing that, I started planning ahead and working out, okay, maybe I don't need to wildcard at this point. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, that's bloody awesome. If I don't need to wildcard at the moment, then I can probably transfer in Salah eventually by game week 9 at the very least, and not to, without sort of ripping up my team too much. And so, yeah, I started just planning, because of that. And, I think it was on Friday where I'd pretty much sort of convinced myself, yep, Eduard's definitely the move that I'm going to make. And yeah, I'm probably going to go Botman because Botman then enables, loads of money in the bank, and I can then bring in Salah later on. So that was the plan of attack, basically. And so, yeah, I think I got to like Friday afternoon or morning or something like that. And I'd messaged FPL Planner. So Tien, I messaged Tien to say, hey, I think I'm pretty much convinced that these are the moves I'm going to make. And I think he said, I can't remember exactly what he said immediately after. I think it was just that's great, fantastic. And I mentioned what my moves are. And then I sort of, put forward my FOMO, and I really, really recommend that you sort of, when you're thinking about transfers, obviously the Twitter community is fantastic, and this is where I've probably, learnt the most from you guys, and just kind of having conversations, whether it's out in the public or, just in direct messages and stuff like that. It's just so useful to kind of just get a different perspective and just see things from a different lens, and especially like someone like me where, I'm only 3 seasons in, but even like the most experienced, FPL managers, it's a really good reminder to just get that sense check and have a few good friends like that where you can sort of rely on to give you good sound advice, and where you don't also take it personally when they criticize your team or anything like that. Just really healthy relationship to have there. Look, I then mentioned that the EV, so the effective value over, I think it was like 8 game weeks or 6 game weeks or something like that, is actually 8 more points if I go with Alvarez, and that's basically by ripping up my team, getting rid of Walker, bringing in Alvarez, over a period of 6 game weeks, that's going to give me 8 more points versus, bringing in Edouard and sort of banking in about 4 or 5 different transfers over the next, 6 game weeks or so as well. And Tien said something really, really wise. I mean, he doesn't have too many wise words at the moment, but he did say something really wise, which was, I want my moves to give me 8 points in 1 game week rather than sort of 8 points over 6 game weeks. And it really, really hit home for me. I think immediately my reaction was, I need to just close this algorithm and just, put it aside, don't look at it, don't sort of, don't focus on that at all. And it's such a good point. And I think we forget that, right? When we're over planning, when we're thinking about, sort of our transfers, we're banking these transfers in as well. It's so easy to get sucked into that over planning, mentality, and not sort of think about, what you can do in the game week that's in front of you as well. And so, yeah, look, I'm really glad that I took that advice on board. But then, to sort of make things more interesting, or, with the plot thickening by the evening, I think I'd obviously made up my mind that I was going to get rid of Chilwell, and I'd made up my mind about, Jackson as well. And so the biggest plot twist in all of this was, okay, I'm not actually, going, so based on that advice, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go Botman and Edouard, right? But this way I've still got loads of money in the bank, and, I've got lots of options. If I don't plan too far ahead, I've still got money in the bank and I've got lots of options. So the next plot twist I had was, as I was sort of, going about my day and thinking about my transfers, getting to the evening, I realised, and this was on Saturday, I think, not even on Friday at this point, but on Saturday, I think I'd gone shopping and played some tennis, and, I was just kind of, just thinking about my transfers in the background. And I realised that these moves are not going to give me any joy. I'm not having fun. I'm really not having fun. And I'm thinking about this from I've got loads of money in the bank. Like, I don't know what's going to happen next game week. I don't know what's going to happen the game week after. And yeah, it's great to have some money in the bank, and it's great to sort of, have that flexibility. Absolutely. And, I might regret sort of saying all of these things, but I decided, you know what? I don't know if I want to go Botman. I actually want Trippier, because I love Trippier. I think he's great. And I had him last season. He did really great for me last season. And I know Newcastle defence haven't necessarily been shining, at this stage, but the fixtures were there, right? Like, the fixture was there ready. I mean, look, we did not predict it was going to be 8-0. There was no way we could have predicted something like that. I think, at best, we thought maybe like 2 or 3 goals and possibly, highly likely clean sheet as well. But, like we didn't know it was going to be 8-0. Anyway, so Saturday, I'm thinking, nah, fuck that. I'm just going to play how I want to play. I'm going to, base it on my gut instinct. And, I was chatting to, I was chatting to FPL Planner about it. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go Wilson. I really got a good feeling about Wilson. I think we'd just heard as well after the press conference as well around, Isak having a knee issue or niggle or whatever it was. And so I think that sort of, was playing on my mind as well from actually, Wilson might be a really good shout to bring in this game week. And so, all of a sudden I've done a huge U-turn after doing a 50-minute video last week around, Edouard and Alvarez and sort of, so yeah, it was a massive plot twist. Unexpected. I wasn't planning it, but I'm really happy that I did it. The funniest thing is I had no idea. I don't think anyone knew how things were going to go, with the game week anyway. Look, it's all about luck. A lot of it is sort of, creating your own luck as well. I think someone mentioned that to me on Twitter today as well, that, you put yourself in a position to sort of be lucky. And I think that's a really good point and something to sort of focus on a little bit as well, that, sometimes we do need to, you've got to be in it to win it, and you've got to have that mentality, put yourself in that position to try and sort of, tempt fate and tempt luck and, sort of, and hope for the best as well. And I think that's one thing I've definitely been able to do, is hope for the best. But honestly, I think I've been focusing a lot more on what data was telling me over the past couple of game weeks, definitely, because my decisions from game week 1 and 2 weren't going well. So instead of sort of trusting the process and trusting my gut and being patient, I decided to trust lots of other things above my gut and above my instinct and above my process. So, I think it's important to sort of keep yourself in check and kind of, like reflect on your game weeks, have a think about, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and try and sort of, do a bit of a retrospective on that, and what could you do differently as well. And so, I started doing that a little bit more, and I realized that the one thing that stood out to me was that I wasn't playing with my heart, and I wasn't, making decisions based on the players that I really, really wanted. And so, yeah, immediately I felt good. And even with the thought of this could go terribly wrong, Wilson might not start. He might just get 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or whatever it may be. Isak might start and he might be completely fine. And so, same with Trippier. It was like, well, there was all this conversation about Trippier being rotated with Livramento as well. And so I was like, you know what? I'm okay with all of the above. I'm okay with all of that. And I think it was because I was going with my gut this time more than what data was telling me. When data gives you information about something that could be a sure bet, or, this is like your betting odds, basically, isn't it? And when something is so high and you've got high level of confidence, it feels like a no-brainer to go towards that. But realistically, this is a game about luck, right? And it's a game about chance. It's a game about sort of, yes, it's strategic. Yes, you're making decisions based on all of these things. But at the end of the day, if you're only using one avenue to make that decision, not to say that I had been only using one avenue, like, using algorithms, but I started questioning my instincts above everything else. And so, yeah, I think, that's something that I'm going to hold on to quite dearly and try not to do too often as well. So, yeah. Anyway, look, I've got another request for a conversation. So for those that are new to this is pretty much one-sided. I apologize. I'm not going to be able to capture the audio. I'm also recording this, so it'll go onto my YouTube channel as well. So my apologies if you wanted to sort of have a bit of a chinwag. I will open it up at some point as well and find a way to even sort of stream it directly on YouTube as well. So, bear with me. Anyway, so look, in a nutshell, and, my very long-winded way of sort of saying, about sort of trusting your gut and actually celebrating some of those wins as well, I managed to actually slash my my game week rank, my overall rank by half, which is fantastic. And it should be celebrated. And, I think we forget to do that as well. So look, I was at 4.3 mil last game week, and, now I'm sitting at 2.1, which is still ridiculously high. high. It's really sort of, it's really difficult, right? Like we can see that there's a lot more engaged managers this time round. It's very, very competitive. I can't believe how high the safety score was this time as well. So I think my safety score was something like 63 points or, maybe even higher. And so, I think kudos to all of you if you manage to meet your safety score or even get higher points. I think I had a message from someone saying, oh, I only got 82 points and, that you've put my points to like my game week to shame sort of thing. Or I don't know, something along those lines. And I was like, no, hell no. Like that is a huge score and you should be really proud of that. And you should celebrate those things as well. And think about, I guess the decisions that you made leading up to that process and hold on to those as well. So yeah, look, I'm really happy that I managed to kind of halve my my overall rank. It is a process. It's a huge mountain to climb. And I know that, I know it's a huge mountain to climb. But you know what? I have to admit, and I felt this way last game week, the game week before as well, I love a good challenge. And so for me, I'm looking at this as a really good, interesting, sticky challenge to get stuck into from how do I make these micro adjustments, whether that is I'm going to roll my transfer or just make one transfer or just be a bit more considered and go with my gut sort of feeling a little bit more is how I would like to play. And so look, I'm glad that I went with the gut calls there. Obviously, there's always going to be the I think I woke up this morning and saw the score because I didn't watch all of the match overnight. It's like, so in Australia I think the Newcastle match was on like 1:30 in the morning, and so I managed to catch about half an hour of it before I decided to go to bed because obviously it's Monday and it was like a school night for me, and so yeah, there was no way I was going to stay up for the whole match. But waking up to 8-0, I was like, oh fuck yeah. So Wilson, what did he get, a hat trick? Did he get a brace? And so you're always going to get that feeling, isn't it, where you sort of you look at the score and you sort of go, how on earth is it possible that 8 different players got different, got all those goals? Insane. But there you go. But look, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm really happy that I got some return. Wilson was a huge differential for me. Trippier, 18 pointer was massive as well. And so, look, Burn got return. So did Botman. And so look, it could have been any of them, right? But look, I went with Trippier because of the set pieces and just that extra bit of kind of movement and crosses and things that Trippier makes, and so that's what sort of brought me to Trippier, and because I didn't want to get rid of Walker. And fuck yeah, like I'm glad that I didn't get rid of Walker because that could have been insane. Walker got an assist, 11-pointer, and they finally managed to keep a clean sheet. So yeah, I think again you couldn't have predicted that, and Foden getting that return as well. So again, sort of being patient with your players, and so it was a huge sort of learning exercise for me over the past couple of game weeks, and this game week especially. So I think the only players that didn't return from my team were Mbeumo, Rashford, and actually, yeah, that's pretty much it. Mbeumo and Rashford. I don't think Estupinian got a return, but he got... actually, no, he did. I think he did. He got a return. So, yeah, so 6 points for Estupinian as well. And Pickford, I guess, like, all those of us that have patiently been holding Pickford. I'm not proud of it, but here we are. It is what it is. I don't think I'm going to be making a goalkeeper transfer just yet. But... look, in a nutshell, it was a really good game week, and look, at the moment, I'm not really thinking about making transfers for game week 7. So, what I'm thinking at the moment, so my bus team is looking like Pickford in goal, playing Luton, and then I've got Walker, Trippier, and Gabriel, in my back line. At the moment, I'm playing 5 in the middle, so I haven't really decided if I want to play Maddison or not, because Spurs are playing Liverpool, but I'm thinking about having Maddison and Mbeumo Rashford, Foden, and Saka. And then up front, I'll have Wilson, and Newcastle are playing Burnley, so maybe that's a good game for him to start again and get some returns as well. So let's see. And Haaland, of course, and I'll be captaining Haaland this game week. It does mean that I'm benching Estupiñán, and I'm not crazy about that idea about benching Estupiñán against Villa. But and so this is where I'm toying with the thinking around benching Maddison potentially. And look, on my radar of sort of, potentially moving out of my team are players like Mbeumo, Rashford, even Saka in the short term. I'd be tempted to do that, and mainly because I haven't really decided when I'm wildcarding, and so based on when I'm wildcarding, I might sort of dead end and sort of just make a couple of moves that sort of give me just channeling FPL Planner a little bit here, and give me points in the game week that we're going into. So haven't really decided. I'm not crazy about bringing in double game week players. Call me mad, I don't know. Not excited about bringing in anyone, and don't really want to. I'd rather have 2 free transfers going into game week 8, and potentially even sort of look at bringing in Son then as well. So I don't know. I haven't really decided about that, but look, I think at the moment I'm quite happy with my game week 7 team. Might not be a green arrow, just because I know there'll be a lot of FPL managers, and there are a shit ton of engaged FPL managers at the moment as well, and they'll probably be thinking about having many double game weekers, or there'll be lots of players playing their free hit as well. So I can't imagine there'll be many managers. I'm sure there will be, but I can't imagine many managers hitting their wild card in game week 7, or maybe there will be, I'm not sure, but it's one of those game weeks where maybe not, but look, at the moment I'm seriously considering wildcard in 8, 9 or 10. I'm not sure just yet. I can actually get to Salah if I sacrifice Rashford, but again, you know what, I'm quite happy to not plan that far ahead, just because it's I just want to sort of base it on how game week 7 goes and go from there. But yeah, I'm quite happy to have 2 free transfers going into the next game week. So going into game week 8, that is, and just rolling the transfer this game week. So yeah, look, that's what I'm thinking at the moment. Really happy with where things are from that point of view. And look, it's all about perspective, isn't it? So, here I am sort of, talking to you guys for the last sort of 30 minutes or so, talking about how happy I am with going from, 4.3 mil to 2.1 mil. But it is progress, and those are the types of things that you should be celebrating and you should be sort of focusing on. It's the progress that you're making and taking, one step at a time as well. Like, there's no way I could have predicted that I would have had a 50%, green arrow. At best, I would have been happy with like 20%, 10%, whatever, green arrow. It would have been just perfect, because I've only had red arrows from, when I started the season. So yeah, really happy from that point of view. And it is a marathon, and there's a long way to go. But I'm really excited at the prospect of sort of climbing the ranks now, and just being a bit more patient, and just finding a little bit of like, I guess a little bit of like opportunities wherever they're possible, and seeing like the positivity. Like, I'm definitely a glass half full person, and so yeah, feeling a little bit more optimistic. And yeah, so yeah, look, that's where I'm at the moment. Like I mentioned earlier, thank you so much for joining me. And this video will be available on YouTube probably in the next sort of hour or so. Really appreciate all of you guys, turning up and sort of, having just having an audience. So yeah, it's really nice. And thank you for the reactions as well, because they get captured on the YouTube video as well. So really appreciate it. Thanks again. Thanks for tuning in. So please comment, please sort of react, like, subscribe to YouTube channel as well. Really appreciate it. And lastly, I the reason why I sort of ended up doing this a little bit earlier is also because I'm going to be joining the FPL IQ guys on Thursday evening. So Thursday evening Australian time. So that's like 9:30 p.m. Same time as you joined, today as well, wherever you are. Yeah, be sure to join FPL IQ. Really great bunch of guys, having a good conversation as well. And so yeah, we'll be live on Thursday at about around 9:30 p.m. Australian time. So yeah, hopefully catch you there. Thanks again, and like I mentioned, yeah, please go check out the YouTube video if you liked it, and yeah, please subscribe as well. And yeah, really appreciate having you here. Thank you. Take care, and have a fantastic rest of the week.